All right. So we have this, and now let us take a look at the structure of a hydrogen atom. Now, the structure of a hydrogen atom is unique because it has no neutrons. So these neutrons, which do not have any charge, are absent in hydrogen. So the structure of hydrogen will be like this. It has one proton, one positively charged particle inside the nucleus. And around the nucleus, it has an electron revolving around the nucleus. Okay, so this is the structure of a hydrogen atom. Now, if I tell you to write down the number of electrons, what will you say? How many electrons are there in hydrogen? One. Okay, now, yeah, very good. So now, yeah, good. So one electron in hydrogen and one proton in hydrogen. We know proton is positively charged, so I'm going to write that as +1. Electrons we know are negatively charged, so I'm going to write it as -1. So +1, -1, when I add these two numbers, I end up getting 0. That means that the hydrogen atom is neutral. It is not charged because both these charges are equal in number and they balance each other out. Okay, so hydrogen atom is neutral. In fact, all of these atoms that you will see, they're all neutral because the number of protons will be equal to the number of electrons. Okay, now let us take a look at the helium atom. Okay, so helium, what is inside the nucleus? Can you guys tell me? So 2 protons and 2 neutrons inside the nucleus, and outside the nucleus, I have 2 electrons revolving around the nucleus. Okay, so this is the structure of helium atom. Now, how many electrons are there in this? 2. All right, so the number of electrons in helium is 2. Now let's take a look at lithium. Okay, lithium has 3 protons. Now notice how the atomic number, we know the atomic number of hydrogen is 1. It is the first element. Atomic number of helium is 2. It is the second element. And it has 2 protons.
Ma'am, what is the symbol you wrote?
So this is the letter Z or Z, however you pronounce it, is the atomic number. Okay. Atomic number is equal to the number of protons. All right. So atomic number 1 has 1 proton. Atomic number 2 has 2 protons. Lithium is atomic number 3. It has 3 protons and 3 neutrons. And around the nucleus, it has 2 electrons in the first shell. So just like planets revolve around their own respective orbits, for example, Mercury revolves in its own orbit, Venus revolves in its own orbit, Earth revolves in its own orbit. Similarly, even electrons revolve in particular orbits. Okay, so like this atom over here, let's say this is the nucleus of the atom. Around the nucleus, I have shells, different orbits. These are called shells. Okay, so now these shells are named, for example, the first shell is called as the K shell. Second shell is called as the M shell, L shell, M. So the naming starts from K, L, M, N, and so on. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So the important thing to remember is the K shell or the first shell of any atom. Okay. So the K shell or the first shell can only hold a maximum of 2 electrons. It cannot hold more than 2 electrons. Okay. Can hold 2 electrons max. Okay. Not more than 2. And L shell can hold maximum of 8 electrons. Okay. And M shell can hold maximum of 18 electrons, but the problem is that the moment 8 electrons are filled in the M shell, the N shell starts filling up. Okay, so the moment 8 electrons fill into the M shell, the N shell starts filling up. So that is why even though the M shell can hold 18 electrons, it is not going to have 18. It will have only 8. Okay. Similarly, even the N shell will
Ma'am,
have.
why like that?
It's because beyond that point, the electrons, the energy which the electrons require, it just like the energy which the electrons have, they just correspond to a higher energy level. So I'll tell you what that means. So basically, each of these shells, K shell, M shell, and L, all of these shells have a particular energy level associated with them. Okay. Um, Tell me one thing. When you have like charges in a magnet, when you take the same poles of a magnet and you bring them close, what happens?
They repel.
Repel.
They repel. Very good. Similarly, when I have
So like because they both are like they're negatively charged
uh-huh,
and they are opposite charge. I mean like charges. That's why they repel.
yes, okay. So that is why when these atoms revolve around the nucleus, you will never see two atoms. Sorry, when these electrons revolve around the nucleus, you will never see two electrons side by side. They will try to be as far away as from each other as possible. Okay. So what happens in the M shell is when you have 8 electrons, even though it has the capacity to take more than 8, what happens is the electrons have a higher energy, so they jump to N shell. Okay, so they jump one level up as soon as 8 electrons are completely filled.